Hey guys, thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Chris, and let's go down to this theory concerning Us. So Jordan Peele's Us was released this weekend. What a fantastic, phenomenal horror film. I already did an ending explain where I go over the entire movie as a whole, giving you clues and details you might have missed in that film. But in that video, I brought up a certain theory that might be plausible in Jordan Peele's Us. So this is your final spoiler warning. If you have not seen Us, please click away. I don't want the movie ruined for you. This is such a great horror film that you should experience it firsthand. So after watching Jordan Peele's Us in theaters a couple of times, I picked up on something the movie was trying to throw at us that was sort of a hidden twist beyond the main twist of the film. That the actual Jason we follow all along was a tethered, and that the real Jason was switched a while back before this movie got started. Crazy, I know. But let me get you some facts. Before I go into it, I want to say, obviously, I know this is just a film theory. I'm not saying this is fact, and this is definitely what Jordan Peele was doing. And hell, that's the fun and brilliance of Us, that we can debate on this, whether it is real, whether it's not real, what does it really mean, what other hidden things are there. Jordan Peele has learned to not come out and confirm anything about his movies. If he ever comes out and says, yeah, the boy was switched, yeah, Adelaide did this, there's a little meaning here and there, it ruins the fun of the movie because no one wants to play with a Rubik's Cube once it's been solved. So if you disagree with this theory, I encourage it. Have fun, debate with me down there, and you know I'll be in the comments section talking with you guys. One of the first clues that the film throws at us that this Jason's not who he says he is the dad points out, where have you learned all these new words? Why are you acting different? Specifying that this does not fit in with the characteristic of Jason that they know and love. One of the next clues we get is when the dad is trying to convince the mother that they should go to the beach to have a little family fun. The father brings up a specific point that last year their grandmother died and it took an effect on Jason, that he started to act weird after that, using it as leverage to be able to go to the beach because it would put Jason in a better mood than he has been in lately. This to me is a resolution of some of the concerns you guys brought up. Is if they were switched last summer like you're implying, then wouldn't the family notice that he's different, that he acts funny? No, because that same summer when he was switched, his grandmother passed away. And if the father's correct in what he's implying, that he was pretty close to his grandma, it would make sense to the family that the boy all of a sudden stopped talking, started acting different, had all these behavioral issues, because losing a family member can have drastic changes on you, so they saw nothing wrong with his change in behavior. Even darker if you start to think, did the tether kill his own grandmother because he didn't share the same affection that the real Jason did? When finally at the beach and the family is relaxing, one of the twins accidentally knocks over what Jason was building. After doing so, one of the twins asks the kid, "What were you making anyways?" And Jason replies with, "A tunnel." Now, I don't know about you, but usually when I go to the beach, I like to build me sandcastles, not a tunnel. This was a big clue the film was trying to throw at you, because this Jason is a tethered, and all his life until most recently, he was living underground, so he was building what he thought was his home. They even seal the deal a little further when the twins walk off and go past Jason's sister. They make it a point to say, "Your brother's weird," which again is another hint to the audience, because we know tethers, pretty funky people. Another line that we get in the movie where they talk about the previous summer, where I'm implying that this Jason was switched, the daughter talks about how Jason disappeared for a little bit because he got trapped in that closet that only opens one way. I think this was a big hint that that's when Jason switched and they didn't realize it because he had gone missing in that closet. The sister in this movie had a lot of foreshadowing lines. She even had that line hinting at government involvement with fluoride in the water to control the population, hinting at the further revelation in this movie that the government created these tethers. So this could have been another foreshadowing line that the sister was given to hint towards the audience. Now, diving deeper into this theory, one of the biggest concerns you guys gave me is, but tethered Jason had a burnt face. How could they be switched if he was burnt? Especially since the tethered mother, when she first shows up, tells the story of how Jason was born out of fire, implying that he had been burned from birth. To explain that concerning question you guys have is, you have to understand the story that mother was telling was metaphoric. The story itself is a girl and her shadow. Is that girl literally a shadow? Is she Peter Pan on the wall? No, because this whole story she's telling is metaphorical and has a lot of symbolism implied into it. When she goes off listing each one of the family members and how she's not in love with them, the father's a brute, the sister's evil, she mentions Jason was born out of a fire metaphorically, meaning this kid was like born out of hell, was a demon. I don't know what tethered healthcare insurance is like, but if you're spreading your legs past a fire to get a baby through, you're not doing it the right way. That's a misdirect Jordan Peele was throwing at you, because if you're not paying too close attention and you just hear fire, born, Jason, you think, oh, that's how he got burnt. Okay, that makes sense. But when you actually analyze the movie, you realize the mother is speaking metaphorically and that the baby didn't literally come out into the fire. So then that leaves us with, okay, then how did that Jason get burnt? Well, that is the whole reason this magic trick is in the movie. When watching back the movie, you have to realize how big of an impact the movie is focusing on Jason and this magic trick that he keeps trying to figure out how to do. At one point, I even get annoyed with how many times he's clicking that thing. And with the mythology that Jordan Peele sets up in this movie, Us, whatever one person does above, the other one below copies the same trait. We saw that with people and how they eat, how they ride roller coasters, how they interact with each other. So when Jason mentioned that he remembered this magic trick and playing with it last summer, he just couldn't recall what it did. It was after they were switched and that Jason was playing with the magic trick, the one below, the real Jason, was playing with matches as a parallel to his magic trick. So every time the above ground Jason was able to successfully do his magic trick and click, the one below was lighting matches close to his face and against his will, fire right around his mouth. It's some sickening stuff if you think about it. This would also explain why that Jason no longer talks, because constantly having fire burnt on your mouth would really numb your nerves and you would no longer be able to speak. That explains his fire marks and why he doesn't talk in this movie if he is the real Jason. Moving on to the next thing. Okay, so you're telling me Tethered Jason learned to speak English perfectly within 6 to 3 months of him being quiet from his grandmother's death? No, that's another thing right there. The mother down below, the real Adelaide, as we come to find out by the end of the movie, knew English. And if you watch closely Us, when she is explaining her family members, even though she gives a negative connotation to Jason, saying he's a demon baby born out of fire, he's really the only kid that she's petting, that she has some sort of connection to. The other family members she could care less about, which implies to me that that tethered mom had a connection with the boy and would teach it English as to better communicate. So that way when they're switched, it's much easier for that tethered to blend in with normal life because he already has bits of English built into him, instead of the Adelaide from 1986 when they were switched who had to learn it from scratch. Another concern you guys brought up, okay, wait, so if you're telling me this guy right here is the real Jason, why is this boy crawling on all fours, acting like an animal, acting like a dog? Pay attention to the movie and that answer is solved. The reason this Jason is like that is because you have to remember, even though these characters, the real one and the tethered one, are binded by the same soul. So they're not mere opposites of each other. They share the same traits, they share the same admirations, they just grew up in a different environment, which really affected their overall outcome, which is another message in this movie, like growing up in a rich society to a poor society. What I'm getting at is both Jasons share a love for animals. I mean, the tethered Jason, once he's out, is obsessed with wearing that Wolfman mask. I mean, almost in every scene this kid is in, he has that mask on him. He takes it off before bed, but then after the mother leaves, he quickly puts it back on because in a later scene, after it's bedtime, he has it on again. He even goes to certain places to hide so he can scare his sister. That means the real Jason had this same trait in him as well. He admired animals. He wanted to be one. Kind of like that kid in your kindergarten class who wanted to grow up to be a dinosaur. Once they were finally switched and that real Jason was put in an environment where everyone acted like an animal, he embraced that obsession he had with animals. It was normal for him. Just like the tethered version of Jason is also trying to embrace his animal side by scaring his sister, wearing his mask. The real Jason was able to fully live that experience. Okay, you're being kind of convincing, Chris, but what about in this scene? If you're saying that's the tethered Jason, how come he can control the real Jason to kill himself in that fire and walk backwards? I don't know why people don't understand the way these tethers are working, why they think only the real person can be the one in control to mimic the movements, because then that would defeat the entire twist of the movie that the tethered switched a long time ago and was in control of Adelaide's life for over 30 years. The way it works is they share the same soul, so essentially they share the same steering wheel. It's whoever decides to take hold of that steering wheel and move the car around that's in control. A human version just usually is in control because they're smarter and can think for themselves. Once a tethered like Adelaide learns that they can take control, they become more dangerous. Just like how Jason learned a long time ago, he can take control, and that's why he was so quick to do it when his family was endangered, because he was liking the life he was living and wanted that Jason gone. There's just honestly so many clues that the film hints at you that this Jason was not the real Jason. Every time I watch it, I pick up on a little something that just hints at it being true. And there's just so many coincidences that I don't feel like Jordan Peele did this on accident. And if he did, man's a genius by accident. Hell, even take the name of the tethered itself, the one that's, well, I think is the real Jason. That kid's name was Pluto. Out of all the planets, you named it Pluto because Pluto is not a planet. Implying out of all the tethers, Pluto is not a tethered. Why else would you explain that every other character pulled out a pair of scissors, but that Jason didn't? Or on the opposite side of the family, when everyone is encountering their other version, they're all crying, scared, and don't know what to do. When you look at Jason, the boy's like, man, this is us. He finally came for me. Boy doesn't look scared or shocked once because he's like, yeah, I knew you was down there, man. I'm sorry. But like I said, feel free to disagree. I'm all up for it. That's the fun of films. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at 3C Film Review. As always, I'm Chris. Take care.